Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again, and we've got a brewery here who should be quite interesting. I've done a couple of reviews of beers where Stillwater have been involved, but I've never actually done a dedicated Stillwater beer review. So for this one we are going to go to Stillwater Artisinal, as you may have guessed, and we're having a taste of their Stateside Saison today, which is one that came into System Beloget through the small portier system, and this is a Saison, as you may have guessed as well, that comes in at 6.8%, and it's rated pretty highly. It was rated at 96 on Rate Beer when I checked it out, so it should be pretty awesome. And the beers that I've had that these guys have been involved in before have turned out to be pretty nice actually, so I'm really interested to do a dedicated Stillwater beer review, so we'll see how we get on with this one. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual websites are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done involving Stillwater. As I say, this is my first dedicated one. There's all the usual social media, make sure you check that out. If you want to see more beer reviews, do subscribe to the channel, and as always, to those of you watching over in America, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review from the States. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Stillwater. So Stillwater Artisinal is the venture of the nomadic gypsy brewer Brian Stillwater Strumke, who's actually a native of Baltimore, Maryland, but he's a former world-renowned techno DJ and producer, and he kind of quite quickly made himself well known in home brewing circles for his kind of unusual brewing methods, and he likes to add really random ingredients to his beers, like wild herbs, spices, wild yeasts, and all sorts of other things. All the beers that I've tried have had some really kind of unusual things added to them. The Williams Brothers one had bog myrtle. There was the Tropic Thunder that I had, which was brewed with Dugas from here in Sweden. There's some really quite interesting things, but he's actually been rated as one of the best newcomer breweries by Rate Beer, and he was rated as well high up in the top 100 brewers in the world, and now he travels the world and does various kind of collaboration beers with lots of different breweries. As I said, the two beers that I've tried that have involved Stillwater before were it was the Stravagan from Williams Brothers Brewing Company, which is one of my local breweries back home in Scotland, and there was also the Tropic Thunder from Dugas Ale och Porto Brewery up near Gothenburg here in Sweden. So he's been involved in some pretty interesting beers, I have to say, and the ones that I've tried so far have been pretty good, so I'm really interested to see what one of his own beers is like. Apparently this one is brewed with American and New Zealand hops, so it's meant to be really good, and with a rating of 96 on Rate Beer, I'm sure it will be. But that's enough about the brewery just now. They've got quite a few different beers. If you want to learn more about the specifics of the Stillwater Artisanal range, go and check out the brewery website. They're always adding new things to their inventory, I guess, and because they're a collaboration brewery mainly, then you will see lots of interesting beers coming out from these guys, so try them while you can. So you have a little look at the artwork on this one. This one is pretty cool actually. You can see, I'm not sure kind of if that's meant to be a kind of snake vulture or exactly what that's meant to be, but it is pretty cool. And this kind of standard symbol here, this kind of scroll thing, is the standard Stillwater Artisanal artwork. This one's a Saison, and I say it comes in at 6.8%, plain bottle cap on this one. And yeah, does it say where it's brewed? Because these guys are a gypsy brewery. It says that it's based, they're brewed and bottled by Stillwater Artisanal, and it's got a location here of Stratford, Connecticut, but it doesn't say actually where it's brewed, but it does say it's distributed by 12% LLC from Brooklyn in New York. So yeah, it should be quite an interesting beer, but without further ado then, let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting here. I'm interested to try this one. So yeah, nice smoky opening on the beer. You can smell some of the fruits and things. You can smell a sort of apricot-y and peachy aroma from this one as you open it up. Should have said the volume in this, because this is a kind of unusual volume that's on this one since it comes from America. Where is it? It says 355 millilitres. Normally in Europe we have a 330 milliliter system, but the Americans of course have their own system of measurements, quarts and gallons and all this. I have no idea exactly what they are. This will probably be like 6 fluid ounces or something like that, which honestly I don't know how many. Obviously it's 355 millilitres, but I've got no real knowledge of that measurement system. But as you can see, this beer has poured a really nice bright, orangey, almost kind of ambery colour. If I shine it over to the light, it's actually coming up as a pretty much golden yellow, to be honest. You guys are seeing it a little bit darker on the camera from what I can see. But there's a frothy white head on this one, about a half finger. It's actually got some quite big bubbles to it. There's a little bit of sediment visible in the bottom of the glass, a few little particles floating around, some big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but quite a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But overall, it looks really nice. So let's have a look at the aroma more closely. You can see the head is just faded away to be a thin foamy layer. Yeah, you know, it smells typically what you would expect of a Saison beer. There's a nice bready malt base to it, there's a bit of yeasty character, a little bit of that banana sort of thing that you sometimes get from Saisons. This one actually does, it smells, it's got a little bit of that Hefeweizen base to it actually, which is quite interesting, I would say. The nose on this one is really reminding me a little bit of a German Hefeweizen, to be honest. When you sugar it up a little bit more, it starts to get sweeter, I'd say. Yeah, there's definitely a bit of that banana thing going on. You can pick up the coriander and slightly peppery spice, and of course the wheat. When it's a Saison beer, there is that wheaty base to it as well. There's a little bit of coriander in this one, definitely. But it smells nice. There's a good bit of fruitiness to this too. I think there's a little bit of orange in there, but for me it's more a kind of juicy, slightly peachy apricot that's coming out of this beer. But as I say, it didn't say on the website exactly what ingredients that he put in this beer. Brian actually likes to he puts really random things in the beer. I mean, the Stravagen that I had, it had bog myrtle and a whole host of other different kind of herbs and things in the beer, so I don't know exactly what has gone into this one. It didn't say, it just said American and New Zealand hops were in this beer. So it should be really interesting. Take a little bit of time and enjoy the aromas of these beers, especially when they're coming from Stillwater, because of the things they add to the beer, you'll get some really random things going on in this one. But it smells, this one smells really kind of exactly as you would expect from a Saison beer. That kind of doughy, yeasty malt base in there, a bit of the bready character. You know, there's some of the clovey, sort of clove spice, a little bit of banana. You can pick up the peppery things going on in there, a bit of grassy character, but there's a nice kind of apricot fruit coming out of this beer too. It smells really nice. Maybe peaches as well. But yeah, it smells like a good beer, but let's get stuck into this one then and we'll see how we get on. This is the Stateside Saison from Stillwater Artisinal, a kind of gypsy brewery, I guess you would say, or a nomad brewery from America, based primarily in Baltimore, Maryland, I believe, but it says Stratford, Connecticut. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte. That's good. You know, completely different on the mouthfeel from what I've had from a Saison before. As I always say with the beers, before you start dissecting the flavour, sugar them around your palate a little bit and just let your whole mouth adjust to the beer. But this one for me is really different in how the flavours are made up actually. Yeah, that's a nice beer, I have to say that actually. So you've got the typical things you expect of the Saison, but then when you move into the aftertaste, this kind of hoppy character just appears out of nowhere. There's a kind of dark flavour just appears in this one. It's kind of dark and slightly floral aromatic, and it just appears and kind of almost hijacks the taste a little bit, but it's really interesting. But the flavours in this beer do blend together really quite well, I have to say. That's a good beer. There's no question about that at all. But there's a lot of the things, that kind of Hefeweizen character that I was picking up in the aroma, you don't get that in the actual flavour of the beer. The beer itself is actually on the kind of sweet side of things for a Saison. Usually the Saison has a good bit. It's not quite as sweet and almost kind of sugary as this one is. The hoppy characters there, but this is really nice. So you've got a nice kind of bready malt base to this one, as you would expect. There's some thicker kind of doughy yeasty flavours on top of that, and a definite wheaty presence, all the things you would expect. But there's a lot of fruitiness to this beer. There's definitely kind of peachy apricot thing. I want to see more of an apricot flavour going on. Just behind the front of the curve of the palate too, or just behind the front curve of your tongue, as I always say, there's a little bit of an orangey citrus for me. You can feel that little oily bubble of the coming out in the mouthfeel, and that's where these fruity esters come out, and I'm getting quite a citrusy orange from that, but there's a good tropical juicy character in this beer. It's a little bit oily at the same time, I should point out, and to me that indicates it's more of a hoppy fruit character rather than additions to the brew that this apricot flavour is coming from. But yeah, this is a good beer. You know, the thing you'll always get with Stillwater, you get definite traits from the style, but you always get something that's that's different in its own right. And that's what I like about these guys. You know, there's things when you go to Germany, they've got the Bavarian purity law, you're not allowed to use these different ingredients, but it can make things really interesting. German beer is good within its own right, of course, but when you start adding random things to the beers like they do in Belgium, for example, and now some of the gypsy brewers and stuff are doing it, it does make the beer really interesting. You can get all these different flavours from it, of course. Omnipojo here in Sweden are a brewery that like to do that. But yeah, that's interesting. There's quite a sweet kind of coriander flavour to this one. I'm not getting the kind of peppery and clovey things that sometimes you can get from saisons. This one's quite a sweet saison. There's a bit of an almost caramelly or sort of biscuity, corn syrupy flavour in the middle of the palate on this one. So you've got that doughy malt base on this one, the yeasty character, some breadiness, a bit of the wheaty character too. The wheat comes out a bit more in the aftertaste, I think, when the beer dries a little bit, but for me, in the middle of the tongue, there's a little bit of caramel and biscuity corn syrup too, and it works really well. It kind of blends really well with this apricot-y, slightly peachy flavour and orange citrus that you're getting out of this beer. The whole flavour just blends together really well. That's the main point that I'm trying to get across. Yeah, it's a good beer, no question about that. So in terms of the hoppy side of the beer, if you go out to the edge of the palate where these hoppy flavours always come out, there's a little bit of floral character. It's not too drying and prominent, I would say. It's more just a kind of nice subtle thing. You can get a little bit of the dryness on the edge of the palate. You can feel it in the back corners. As you come further forward, it smooths out a little bit. Just a little tiny bit of that dryness again on the front corners. And as you go round the front curve of the tongue there, it's quite smooth and quite grassy, I would say. But it goes very, very nicely. There's a little bit of herbal character, I think, underpinning that in the hops too, and it works out really nicely. As you know, the main point I'm trying to put across about this beer, like I said, is that the flavours blend together very well, and there's a lot of interesting things going on in this beer. As I say, Stillwater beers, you get some of the definite traits of the style, but there's always something different, and that's what a lot of people enjoy about this brewery, and quite rightly so. But yeah, in my opinion, this beer is fully deserving of the high rating that it's got. It's really nice, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel, I'd say this is mid-bodied. It's actually quite oily in the mouthfeel. Carbonation is fairly smooth, but there is a little bit of an attack from it. That helps bring out some of the hoppy side of the beer, because the flavour is quite sweet and malty, like I said. There's a good bit of juicy fruit character. It's quite oily, actually, some of the fruit flavours too, but there is an element of juiciness to it. Very smooth malt base, and a bit of kind of spicy bitterness, I would say. The herbal character for me in this one that underpins the hoppy side of the beer is quite interesting, but the main point is that this is a very good beer, and to be honest, if you know Stillwater Artisinal, you wouldn't expect anything less. So yeah, give it a try for yourself and see what you think. So as always, if you have tried this beer for yourself, let me know your own thoughts on it. Always interesting to hear from you guys that are watching the videos. Just remember that beer's subjective, so some of the flavours that I pick up might be slightly different from you, but this is a pretty damn good beer, I would say. I'm glad this one made its way over to Sweden. Quite thankful that I've been able to try it, but as I say, let me know your own thoughts on this in the comments section below. Let me know your favourite beers that you've had from Stillwater as well. This is my first dedicated review to these guys, but until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Go and check out my social media. Your support there would be much appreciated, but most importantly, go and try some of the Stillwater beers and get back to me and let me know what your favourites are, and hopefully I can return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future. Slange you just now, and I will catch you soon. Go and try some Stillwater beers. This one was pretty damn good, I have to say. Cheers.